Hey everybody, it's Head Coach Ross of the Tax Gym Street Warrior and Geo Hoodoo. And I'm responding to some emails and whatnot and conversations that happened earlier today. I was walking on the streets being African American in public when I received some emails indicating that, hey, they had different tenor and tones, but essentially they came in two primary flavors. The first flavors were in response to some of my more political videos, and they were castigating me. They were saying, hey, you know what, you've never experienced slavery. You need to let that go. That's a long time ago. The effects of slavery are gone. You need to let that go and stop holding on to past and ghosts of stuff that doesn't happen anymore, and just move forward and see what's going on now. That stuff isn't happening anymore, and just basically get with reality. I and millions of others like me were basically chasing ghosts. There's no such thing as slavery in the real world right now, and they use as part of their argument and part of their evidence there from the election of President Obama. Okay, so that's one part. The other part, general tenor of the emails I was receiving dealt with the general believers' responses to racism, but the general belief was that racism came in almost stereotypical packages, dropping the N-bomb, police brutality, things pretty much along those lines, the kind of things that make the rounds in the news here in the United States and in many other places, but especially here in the United States. Here's the problem. Racism is actually the philosophy which came about to justify the economic exploitation system that gave rise to slavery. Okay? The more correct name for this philosophy is actually white supremacy. It literally taught that those people of white skin are inherently superior to all other people of whatever color, purely due to the whiteness of their skin. There's centuries later, the concept of the white man's burden was bandied about. The idea was that is the God-given duty and burden of white men, specifically, not white women, white men, rich white men especially, to go about conquering the lands of people of color and civilizing us, despite the fact that we, specifically and particularly we of African descent, are those who created both education and civilization. Clearly, we needed, in their woe-begotten opinions, to be educated by them, and not only educated, but educated in racism and destruction of the planet that they considered to be amongst their finest exports. Now, how does all of this impact us now? Well, again, you have to realize that this process is a multi-pronged, society-wide, society-deep process that is both economic in its focus and racist in its focus together. Okay? So let me tell you what I'm talking about here. I'm going to reach to some of my notes because I wrote down some of the things I was thinking about here. And knowing that you guys, you know how I like to cite my sources, but I know that you guys are not going to do any book cracking, and I mean guys and girls here, not just guys. Since most of you will not crack a book, but you will go online for a few seconds if it's made easy for you, I decided to try to go back to the whole idea of using my phone and in Google connections here. I'm hoping I can see this here. Let's see, there we go, to make the point. Okay, right here on Wikipedia is the list of African American inventors and scientists right here. Okay, now I'm going to go down this list really quickly to make my point, because the economic impact and the denial of opportunity, education, economics, etc., so on and so forth, is of the first impact, first importance to everything that we're doing. You know, a lot of times you hear these questions about, well, all of these other racial groups are doing well in the United States. Why aren't African Americans? Clearly, it's because there's something deficient about the African American community, and that that's really the real culprit here. It's not an issue of racism or white supremacy or discrimination, etc., and so on and so forth. Garbage. It really is. Now let me explain this to you, how it works. Let's run down a couple of lists of inventors, maybe one of which most of you out here have heard of, and the one that you might have heard of, who's black, is George Washington Carver. But guess what? Right away, he did not create peanut butter. So a lot of people think he did. He did not. What he did was he created hundreds of tremendous applications of the use of the peanut plant. And why did that happen? Well, I'm paraphrasing here, looking at some of my notes. George Washington Carver were friends with many poor farmers in the South where he's from. During a time where, of course, slavery in its second incarnation, which happened after Reconstruction, was in full swing. Okay? You need to understand that George Washington Carver could have been killed purely for making the inventions that he did. And so it took a tremendous amount of internal fortitude and dedication, and just an extraordinary kind of person to even want to make inventions and be attached to those inventions in the first place if you are of African American descent. Because you, your friends, and your family could all be killed because of that. In fact, your town could be burned down because of it, and it's actually happened before. So you need to keep this in mind when we're talking about not just one, but the plethora of inventors and the incredible inventions that they've made in the face of the kind of political and social and real world ramifications, literal death threats and realities of being killed that you can't even conceive of nowadays, but which is part of our legacy and heritage due to the very same racism that you say doesn't exist. Okay, now this guy made all kinds of. Here's how it worked. Basically, this is how George Washington Carver got on the map. Many of the poor farmers in the South were growing cotton, and they were depleting the land with their constant rotations of cotton. Now, George Washington Carver came up with the idea of, hey, rotate your crops of cotton with legumes, which is a form of peanut. The farmers took that advice and they wound up saving the land. But then, okay, what are they supposed to do with all these crops of legumes? Bang, that's when George Washington Carver went to his laboratory, used his incredible genius, which he wasn't supposed to have, he could get killed for, and came up with all of these different products and what have you to improve the life of everybody, make the production of legumes profitable. The most popular of his 44 practical bulletins for farmers contained 105 food recipes using peanuts. And he also developed and promoted about 100 products made from peanuts that were useful for the house and for the farm. So you have to realize these things, okay? Now, is there a George Washington Carver peanut company? Is there a George Washington Carver anything that came from the 104, 105 really dynamic inventions of his that he created? No. The reason is because of the very same racism that you claim that doesn't exist. Guess what? All of the peanut butter, etc., so on and so forth, companies that you see, in the shopping when you're going shopping at the supermarkets, what have you, have all stolen his knowledge and his ideas and his science and have and applied to it and are making hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, which should have been funneled into the African American community. Should have been the province of George Washington Carver's businesses, plural, because he made hundreds of inventions. So he would have had a super corporation with other corporations subordinate to that super corporation. His children, his community, his city, his employees, and their children, etc., so on and so forth, would have been drastically and heavily and positively impacted by his creations. Next time you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, recognize that you're eating the extension of the work of people who were not able to profit from their own inventions. And while you're getting your digestion on, you're telling yourself, hey, you know what? The digestion of this peanut butter and jelly sandwich you just got finished eating or whatever that involved peanuts in it. You're at the at the baseball park watching a game, or you're whatever you're doing, Super Bowl party, something, okay, trail mix, anything like that. Guess what? You just paid for and are eating the results of people who have stolen the ideas and the ramifications of the benefits of whole industries that were birthed from George Washington Carver. You are paying people to continue to maintain the racism, discrimination, etc., so on and so forth, and are literally holding in your hands the evidence that we as an African American community have been systematically discriminated against and prevented from receiving the benefits from our own genius, our own creations. Especially at that time, especially back then, we're talking all the way up to 1964, it's not even a long time ago. If you brought a charge up against somebody, if you're a black guy, a black person, bring up a charge against a white person in the white courts, the white judge will hang you for that. This is how the process usually went. You would receive police and governmental and social ramifications all at the same time, triple layers here, okay? So the police would harass you, they would harass your workers, they would beat you up, they would take you to jail, they threaten you with death. The local, county, city, and or state, sometimes federal if you're big enough, regulators would come through and try to find any kind of reason or make up a reason to shut down your business so that their preferred white entrepreneur, who's your competition, who's paying close attention to the money you're making, can take over your business, your location, and essentially force your customers to patronize his business. That didn't work. Then literally white mobs would form, oftentimes fomented by the police, the judge, and these business interests, these supposedly law-abiding people, all right, including many of the legal enforcers themselves, like I told you, the police, all the way up to the federal level, and the judges. They would actually form, burn down your business, try to kill as many as employees as you can, and send that message that, hey, if you as a black community try to organize in advance, we will use every resource in this country to stop you, to kill you, to prevent your attempts to advance. Keep this in mind when I read through the list of the inventors we're talking about here. First up, and I'm deliberately selecting inventors that most of you don't know, but who had a tremendous impact on us. The first up is in 1885, a sister by the name of Sarah Good. Now, she's the first African American woman in the USA to receive a U.S. patent from the patent office. She was born into slavery in 1850, which means that she came up with the idea and received her patent around the time she was 35 years of age. She moved to Chicago and she invented what she called initially the folding cabinet bed. It's literally a bed that you can fold into the shape of a desk, and it doubles as a desk. The thing is practically a transformer. If it was an Autobot, his name would be something like Desk Bedobot. You know what I'm saying? That's what we're looking at. Now, this ingenious ideas of hers is what spawned the notion of the Murphy bed. That bed that you fold up out of the wall, old school. You used to see in stuff like I Love Lucy shows, and you see a lot of times in apartments even now today. You see beds, that you can pull out of walls, pull out of closets, things like that. And of course, it's also the source of the literal actual source of our couch beds and the fold out beds that we can use when we pull stuff out of our we pull a bed out of the couch for our as an extra bed for our guests or something, or sometimes we may want to sleep in the living room, don't want to go into the bedroom for whatever reason. We pull out the old fold out bed from the couch, bang, we're in there. All of that we owe to her, Sarah Good, 1885. Guess what? Beds, mattresses, and stuff like that, multi-billion-dollar industry, should have been focused into the African American community. Guess what? You can't find one multi-million-dollar African American company that is focused on the necessities of betting, etc., so on and so forth. So every time you cuddle up in your bed after running around telling your friends that, hey, you know what, you're overdoing it with this whole slavery thing because that stuff is a long time ago, it doesn't happen anymore. Recognize that you are actually simply extolling the extent of your own ignorance. You have no idea what you're talking about. That's why I'm here to tell you. Now, most of you, although you're ignorant, are primarily good people. Most people who subscribe to my channel, usually good people. We're like part of the great 99%, what I call the great 99%. We're not the super rich, super imperialist, amoral, raggedy people who are really the source of all the problems that we're facing on planet Earth. The top 1% and the top fraction of 1%, and who divide us against each other for their own benefits. You're not part of them, okay? But you are affected by their miseducation and their propaganda. And not just you, me too. Everybody who's born into this system is affected, matrix-like. So you all you have to get like the Negro Neo right here, you know, and educate yourself. Okay, so let's continue. Next person I'm gonna come up with is a brother named George Crumb, C-R-U-M, Crumb. Now, in 1853, he invented the potato chips. It's a really funny story how it came about. He was actually making some potatoes, and one of his customers complained about it. Said that it was too thick and it wasn't cooked properly. It was too smushy and it wasn't salty enough. So he, in a fit, you know, of pique, of displeasure, thought, you know what, I'm gonna teach this guy a lesson about complaining about my good food. So he took the potatoes, sliced them as thin slices as he could, cooked them really, really good, all right, overcooked them even. It burnt them essentially, and drops a lot of salt on them and sent them back. Smash hit. That customer who's complaining loved it. Gave him great reviews. All the other customers loved it. He said, oh, this is great. And he established his own restaurant, because he was formerly a chef for somebody else. He went and established his own restaurant where he featured potato chips on every table in his restaurant, and it was doing very, very well. He did not, by the way, come up with the idea of bagging the potato chips and selling them in mass, but he would have had he not run afoul of the snares of white supremacy, which deals with the economics again and race again. It prevented him from expanding and making the money that he would have made and taking the next logical step, which was bagging his invention. Also, this same white supremacy is what prevents us from even knowing the names of the people I'm telling you about. You don't even know who George Crumb is. You didn't even know who Sarah Good is. I do, because I remember I did my study. I actually read some books. You need to do that. Okay? Now let me tell you about somebody else. A brother named Granville T. Woods. Tremendous impact on not only the United States, but the entire world. Pretty much everything I'm telling you has impacted the whole world. We're looking at multinational, multi-billion-dollar profits here. There's nobody who doesn't go to sleep on a bed in the quote-unquote developed countries. There's nobody who hasn't seen or heard of the potato chips in some way, shape, or form in the so-called developed world. And guess what else? Granville T. Woods created several multi-billion-dollar, world-changing inventions. This brother created, this one we're going to talk about now is actually what was technically called the multiplex telegraph. Now, the multiplex telegraph is essentially for trains what air traffic controlling technology and communication devices are for the air traffic controllers. So every time you hear of a train, you know, going from one place to another and not crashing to other trains or crashing to other stuff or being late or sent to the wrong location or anything else like that, you need to thank Granville T. Woods. There would be no Amtrak or no anybody else without Granville T. Woods. Not that Granville T. Woods came up with this before railroads, railroad engines, etc., so on and so forth, were created. But there would have been so many deaths and collisions that people wouldn't have been getting on it. It would have been a deadly enterprise, which would have been a costly and fail for American business and American ingenuity. The United States business and United States ingenuity, because America and American basically refers to everybody in the Western Hemisphere. Northern, Central, and Southern Americans are all Americans. But people from the United States are arrogant enough to take that title only for us. So I'm keeping it 100 right here, okay? So now think about this. Potato chips, beds, all of the hundreds of health and practical inventions of George Washington Carver with this peanut. Okay, and now the issues regarding railroads. None of these were we able to profit from, but all of these spawned dozens, if not hundreds of, actually more than hundreds, thousands of businesses, because you have the major corporations which dominate this area, and then you have the cottage industries and the businesses that service these major businesses that dominate this entire category. So where are the railroad people getting iron from? If workers going from there, what about their fuel? All this good stuff. There's a constant demand for it because the railroads are still in existence and they're not killing people with collisions. There's a constant demand for beds being shipped out and placed in particular areas because our sister Sarah Good made it possible for us to combine two industries, which is interior design, furniture design, and bedding. Potato chips, I don't even have to say anything about that. You already know. Okay? But all of these things we're talking about are multi-billion-dollar international world-changing inventions which should be fueling the African American community. Not exclusively, but certainly primarily. But due to the racism that you say doesn't exist, hey, that's not happening. Due to the slavery that you say is no longer affecting us, hey, that's not happening. But no, wait, there's more. I have more for you. Have you heard of the name Jan E. Matselinger or Jan E. Matselinger, depending on where you are in the world? No, I know you haven't. Most of you are looking at me like, what the hell? What you saying, Coach Ross? Guess what? This brother created the shoe lasting machine. Nike, Reebok, New Balance, Skechers, anybody you think of. All the big giant shoe companies should be on their knees fiercely filleting this brother right now. All with the fellatio. All with it. Why is that? Because it is his creation, the shoe lasting machine, that's made quality kicks possible. Before you get his shoes, it was terrible. They last about 14 seconds, and you have to go get some another terrible a pair of shoes that'll jack up your feet, jack up your ankles. Didn't have much variety. It didn't have much clothing style, no flavor, anything. You can have all the shoes you wanted as long as the same color, and they're all terrible. He changed that. Nike all by itself is a multi-billion-dollar shoe company. Now think of all the shoes in companies in the world, in the industry that has sprung up around it. Because somebody has to make the shoes, transport the shoes, improve upon the shoes, use science to improve the shoes, study the markets necessary, etc. So all these industries that sprung around the shoe industry and all the other industries we talked about, the railroad industry, the food industries, the health industries, the bedding and interior furniture industries. All these things should be happening centrally within the African American in the U.S. community. There should be gigantic companies. But guess what? Can you think of a black Nike? Can you think of a black-owned Reebok? Can you think of a black-owned Skechers? No, you can't. Even though we have literally invented shoes better than theirs. Oh, yeah. Tell me again about how slavery hasn't impacted us. Of course it has. You have just been miseducated and not even knowing what you're talking about. But wait, we have more. We're not done. We're not done. Elijah McCoy, the man who is the source of and the inspiration for the phrase the real McCoy. He created something called the automatic oil cup. Okay? Now, the automatic oil cup essentially lubricates the axles of working trains while they're in progress. When we talked about there are whole industries that service industries that spring into being because of creations like railroads, etc., so on and so forth. Well, here's another one. This genius of his not only allowed him to save thousands of engineers who get maimed or killed trying to manually lubricate axles of trains that could crush you and rip off limbs and fingers and digits and stuff is not good. His idea was also the source and inspiration for the other forms of lubrication and changing that propelled the increased use of the car, the automobile. So all the hundreds of millions of cars you see on this planet, and every single train that are still operating and not crashing into each other, thanks to Granville T. Woods, they all owe this man, Elijah McCoy, tremendous thanks. But was he able to create his own company behind that? Was he able to amass riches which he could pass on to his children, create companies that would employ black people and help his community, help his people, help his city? No. Due to the slavery that you say that doesn't affect us anymore. Due to the laws and the practices that continued even after slavery was de jure, that means legally, ended, not once but twice. It ended once prior to Reconstruction due to the efforts of black people. And then it ended again in 1964, once again, due to the political pressure and social pressure put upon the United States political system by black people, people of African descent. Think about that. Hundreds of billions of dollars over hundreds of years. All of that should be in the African American community in the United States and from the U.S. spread out to all other African Americans in the Western Hemisphere. But it's not happening. Some of you are working for some of those companies that are profiting off of our adventures right now. Now, let's talk about a sister by the name of Sarah Breedlove. Now, the few of you who know anything about African American history aren't recognizing the name Sarah Breedlove right now. But don't worry about it. If you dive into, let me click it over here online. Okay, let me find it for you because I know you're not going to crack a book. If you go online and find something called Top 10 Inventions by African Americans on howstuffworks.com, science.howstuffworks.com. Let's hopefully I can turn it so you guys can see that. Where's that? Well, I can't turn it right here at this point in time because when I do show it, it's a little too bright for you. Let me lift it up. Let's see if I can get that for you. Let's see here. There we go. Top 10 inventions, okay, by African Americans. All right, on How Stuff Works. That's science.howstuffworks.com. Okay, go there, check it out for yourself. I'm gonna give you a brief rundown. All right. I'm not gonna get into it. Just a real brief rundown. Okay. Let's see here. They actually have some of the people that I've mentioned here. The folding cabinet bed is here. The shoe lasting machine is here. You know, off top, I'm going to throw another one in. There's a guy by the name of Lewis H. Latimer. another black man whose parents were born into slavery, but they were extraordinary. Not only did they escape via the Underground Railroad, they also jumped on his case and kept pushing him and pushing him and pushing him to be to turn his potential genius into actualized genius. This brother here, who most of you have never heard of, not only did he help Alexander Graham Bell with the drafts and plans for the telephone, without which none of this would not exist, without which we probably wouldn't even be talking to each other, because most of you watching me on your cell phone or your tablet or maybe your laptop, but not on your computer. This brother also created the modern light bulb, literally, the modern light bulb. His carbon filament, which is what he created, gave rise to the shape of the modern light bulb, and it was so vastly superior to Thomas Edison's large globular light bulb, which was the first light bulb. Thomas Edison did create the first light bulb. He and dozens of others were racing to create the first light bulb, but he got the credit for doing so. But his light bulb only burned for maybe an hour, maybe, and then it was done. And it was difficult to replace, and it was huge, and it was just a problem. Lewis H. Latimer, remember, son of slaves, drastically improved upon Thomas Edison's invention to such an extent that his invention essentially and completely replaced Thomas Edison's light bulb. It's to such an extent that most of you, when you think of the light bulb, you're actually thinking of Lewis H. Latimer's light bulb, but you're giving Thomas Edison credit for it. Oh, but why don't we have a Lewis H. Latimer power and electricity company? And we do have a Thomas Edison, Edison light and electric, light power and light, power and electric, etc., so on and so forth, depending on whatever locale you happen to be at. Edison International business, massive leader in business, a colossus. Why do we have that? Yeah, it's due directly to the slavery that you say does not exist, the ramifications that don't impact us right now today. Yeah. Tens of billions of dollars, which should be centralized in the African American community and spiraling outwards, have been literally stolen from us, and you're profiting from it. Well, others are profiting from it. Yeah. And not only that, these people's names, what I'm telling you, their actual names in their lives have been erased from what should be commonly known history. And this was all deliberate. It was part and parcel of the racism, the effect of slavery, the white supremacy, and the most damaging aspects of slavery, which is economic exploitation and denial of opportunity in every possible way. That continues unabated right this second that you're watching my video. I could go on more and list more people, but I think you get the point. The next time you open your mouth, know what you're talking about. Do your research. Understand that the issues that we are facing are much more complex than what you're watching in the news. And if you are part of the good people who are looking to remove all the issues, you know, that spring from the people who Hillary Clinton called the basket of deplorables, the people who are in there, the Islamophobes, the racists, the chauvinists, all of the ists and the acists, all of those people. If we're looking to rectify the issues that they've created, which most of us are, in some way, shape, or form, most of us are, then you start here. You start with actually educating yourself, removing the prejudices and racisms that all of us have been programmed with subconsciously. And once that's gone, the path to progress is crystal clear. Because you see that what you thought was an untrammeled path, toward progress, like education and entrepreneurship, have actually been fraught with perils that are specific for specific groups. And when we remove those obstacles, everybody benefits, because those obstacles impact everyone to some extent or other. Oh yeah, remember hip hop? Multi-billion-dollar industry. How many multi-billion-dollar record companies and related service companies are owned by black people? Just think, all the fly music, all the fly clothes, all the fly food, all that. We did that. Well, a significant chunk of that. When I say we did that, I'm deliberately being, facetious there. I'm deliberately being exaggerating. So don't take me literally there. What I'm saying is, we've done a tremendous amount of that, and that's billions and billions and billions of dollars every year that we are being robbed of as a result of the slavery, the primary facets that made slavery possible, that you think doesn't exist. Chew on that. Have any questions or comments? You want to fact check me, debate with me, leave those comments at the end of my video. If you agree with me, leave those comments at the end of my video. Please hit my video with a like. Please hit that subscribe button. Please go to my website, Attacks Gym Street Warrior Capoeira, at googlesites.com. Buy us some stuff from there. Support us. That's how we pay the bills. Thank you very much for your time. Take care and be safe. Asante sana. Ashe.